Hello students, how are you? I'm doing great. Today we are going to talk about the Consumer Protection Act 1986. We are all consumers, right? Suppose you go to a shopping mall to buy something, or you go to a bank to do some transaction, or uh, you go to a local provision store to buy groceries. You are a consumer, right? So as consumers, we have our interests, we have our rights, and there are bodies to protect them. So let us learn all these. Every class must have some objectives. In this class, we are going to learn major provisions of the Act. We know about grievance redressal options available to consumers, and we know the rights of consumers. Introducing you to the Act, as I said, the Consumer Protection Act is a special act enforced in 1986 by Government of India to protect the rights and interests of consumers, and this act is applicable to the whole of India except Jammu and Kashmir. It provides for the establishment of consumer protection councils and consumer dispute redressal agencies. So these are the agencies which redress consumer grievances. Let us move on. It applies to all types of goods and services, public utilities, and public sector undertakings, and complaints of all types, whether relating to goods, services, or unfair trade practices, have been brought within the purview of the Act. In case of goods, it is called defect. In case of services, it is called deficiency. And in case of marketing, it is called unfair trade practices. We will discuss these in detail in the coming slides. In every act, there will be this section, definitions. In Indian Contract Act also, we found definitions for terms like contract, agreement, offer, acceptance, capacity, and so on. In this act also, there is a section on definitions for important terms. The first one, complainant. As you know, complainant is a person who makes a complaint. So as per this act, the complainant is a person who can make a complaint to a consumer dispute redressal forum. The forum may be district forum or state commission or national commission, any of these forums. So the person who can make a complaint to any of these forums is called a complainant. And the complainant can be a single consumer like you and me, or a voluntary consumer association registered under the Companies Act, or any other law being in force. Or it can be the state government or central government, or two or more consumers where numerous consumers have suffered, And in case of death of consumer, it is legal heir or representative of the deceased consumer. The next one, complaint. A complaint is a written allegation which is in writing. A written allegation made by a complainant about unfair trade practice or restrictive trade practice or defects in goods or deficiencies in services in any respect or price charged in excess. I mean the price charged in excess of MRP or displayed price or contract price. And lastly, goods and services which are hazardous or likely to be hazardous to life and property. So a written allegation made by a complainant about these things is called a complaint. So next, consumer. Consumer is any person who buys any goods for a consideration but does not include goods bought for resale or for commercial purpose. Or in case of services, consumer is any person who hires or avails of any services for a consideration, but it does not include availing of services for commercial purpose. Here, the consideration may be paid immediately or partly paid and partly promised, or any deferred payment option can be used, like hire purchase or installment system, anything. So the payment method can be anything, but it's a sale. Okay. So next, consumer dispute. So consumer dispute is a special term. It means a consumer has made a written allegation about a seller, but the seller is denying or disputing the allegation made in the complaint. So this is called a consumer dispute. So the seller is not accepting the mistake. He is disputing the allegation made by the consumer. So this is called a dispute. If he agrees that he has made a mistake, then it is not a dispute. He will come to settlement. But only when he denies or disputes, only then it is called consumer dispute. Defect. We use this term with respect to goods only. So defect refers to any fault, imperfection, or shortcoming in quantity, quality, purity, potency, or standard required to be maintained under any law for the time being in force, or under any express or implied contract made between the buyer and seller, or seller and the consumer. So it is called a defect. The next one, deficiency. We use this term with reference to services. Deficiency is any fault, imperfection, shortcoming, or inadequacy in the quality, nature, and manner of performance of services required to be maintained under any law for the time being in force, or under express or implied contract made between the consumer and the seller. So defect we use with reference to goods, but deficiency is used with reference to services. Next, goods. The Act defines it as every kind of movable property. Every kind of movable property, and it includes stocks and shares, growing crops, grass, and other parts of land attached to the land and which can be severed, separated from the land under the contract of sale. But goods do not include actionable claims and money. Goods do not include actionable claims and money. So checks, bills, promissory notes, currency notes, coins, these are not goods. They are medium of exchange. So money and actionable claims are not goods. Next, services. Services are basically provision of facilities. Provision of facilities like banking, finance, housing construction, purveying of news or other information, transportation, housing, boarding, lodging, etc. But services do not include those rendered free of charge or under a contract of personal service. Unfair trade practices. As the name itself suggests, it refers to any trade practice adopting any unfair method or deceptive practice. There are different types of unfair trade practices. The first one, false representation and misleading advertisements. Falsely representing goods and services as if they belong to a particular standard or particular quality or composition or performance or durability, anything, without conducting sufficient tests and any professional qualifications. Making false representations regarding sponsorship, approval, performance, accessories, etc. And misleading representation as to usefulness of goods, misleading promise as to repair, maintain, or replace an article, misrepresentation as to price, etc. And the second type in unfair trade practices False offer of bargain price. False offer of bargain price. You might have seen prices like 199, 499, 799 in some e-commerce websites. That is called psychological pricing. They hike the price and then pretend to giving a discount, right? They hike the price and then pretend to give a discount. That is called false offer of bargain price. It gives an impression that we are getting some discount. We are bargaining the price with the seller. So that is called false offer of bargain price. And the third type, false offer of prices, gifts, etc. Some companies conduct games of chance or skill or lottery type of activities just to lure customers. In fact, the cost of conducting such games or lottery is included in the price of the product itself. So, in order to improve the sale or supply of that particular product and to serve business interest, the company is conducting such activities. So, they are called false offer of prizes, gifts, lottery, games of chance, etc. And withholding any scheme is also an unfair trade practice. Withholding any scheme. The company is running some scheme, but it is discontinuing it now. To just give an example, consumers get a scratch card along with the product. They scratch the card and they will get a code. The company will pick up a lottery from those codes and lucky consumers will get prizes. So this is the scheme, lottery scheme. Suppose the company discontinues the scheme without any valid reason. That is also an unfair trade practice, right? So withholding any scheme without any valid reason is also an unfair trade practice. And the fifth one, the sale or supply of goods not following or not complying with the prescribed standard. In some medicines, the amount of chemicals to be used in producing them is strictly restricted to a certain percentage or certain milligrams. So beyond that limit, the pharmaceutical company cannot go beyond that limit. So there is a restriction. So like that, every product will have its own standard. So selling or supplying goods not complying with such standards is also an unfair trade practice. And the sixth one, hoarding, destruction, or refusal to sell. Hoarding, you must be knowing. Hoarding means creating artificial scarcity. Creating artificial scarcity by depositing or piling up stocks of a particular goods, particular product. So creating artificial scarcity. So the prices will rise and so the seller can make huge profits by selling them in times of scarcity. And manufacture or sale of spurious goods and services. Spurious means not genuine or not reasonable, not real. So these are the unfair trade practices. To brief it, I will say point by point. The first one, false representation and misleading advertisements. Second one, false offer of bargain price. False offer of gifts, prizes, games of chance, skill, etc. Withholding any scheme offered by the company. Hoarding, destruction, or refusal to sell. Sale or supply of goods and services not complying with the prescribed standard. And manufacture and sale of spurious goods and services. So totally 7. Next, restrictive trade practices. This is a slightly different concept. So restrictive trade practices refer to any trade practice that involves manipulation of price or conditions of delivery or affect flow of goods in the market or flow of supplies in the market relating to goods or services so as to impose on consumers unjustified costs and restrictions. So this is the main point. Impose on consumers unjustified costs and restrictions. To put it in simple terms, it is nothing but putting restrictions on consumers, right? Putting restrictions on consumers. So those restrictions may be related to conditions of delivery or price or supply, right? So any terms related to the sale contract. To give an example, delaying the supply of goods beyond the period allowed by the sale contract, which will lead to rise in prices unnecessarily. Or suppose putting restrictions on buying, hiring, or availing of goods or services. Suppose putting a restriction like this: if a consumer has to buy product B, he must buy product A. So, buying of goods or services is dependent on buying of some other product. So, like that, putting restrictions on consumers. So, these are called restrictive trade practices. So, we shall move on. Rights of consumers. This is the most significant part of this lesson. I think you must have seen advertisements in the media. Jago Grahak Jago. So it is an initiative taken by the central government to spread awareness of consumer rights. So as consumers, we must be aware of our rights. So basically, there are 8 consumer rights. The first one, right not right to be protected or right to safety. It means that every consumer has a right to be protected against the marketing of goods and services which are spurious and hazardous to life and property. So we can protest or we can redress our grievances against this type of exploitation. So those who are marketing spurious and hazardous goods and services can be penalized. So consumers have that right. Okay. Next, the second one, right to be informed. Consumers have the right to be informed about quality, quantity, potency, purity, standard, durability, and price of goods and services. Third one, right to be assured or right to choose. All consumers have right to have access to a variety of goods and services at competitive prices. So every consumer has a right to choose from a variety of products and services. Next, the fourth one, right to be heard. This means consumers have right to be heard at appropriate consumer forums. Consumer interests will receive due consideration at appropriate forums. Right to seek redressal. Every consumer has right to seek redressal at appropriate forums against unfair trade practices or restrictive trade practices or unscrupulous exploitation of consumers. So if we come across any of these, we can file a complaint in the appropriate consumer forum. Next, right to consumer education. To spread the awareness of consumer rights and redressal options, consumer education responsibility has been assigned to the Central Consumer Protection Council. So we have every right to get consumer education. What are the rights we have? How to complain, where to complain, what is the compensation limit, etc. Then right to basic needs. Every one of us wants a dignified life, is it not? So for a dignified living, we need food, clothing, shelter, education, healthcare, transportation, sanitation, all these facilities. So these are regarded as basic needs. So every one of us has a right to basic needs. These needs must be fulfilled first. So consumers have right to basic needs. And the eighth one, right to healthy environment or quality of life. We have right to be protected against environmental pollution because we need to protect this environment for our future generations. So we have right to healthy environment or quality of life. So moving on, consumer protection councils. You might have heard about councils like Indian Medical Council, Bar Council, and councils in different fields. In the same way, there are councils to protect consumers' rights and take action against consumer exploitation. So, consumer protection councils have been established under the Consumer Protection Act. They work at three levels: Central Consumer Protection Council, State Consumer Protection Councils, and District Consumer Protection Councils. So these councils are established at central level, state level, and district level. Their business is to spread consumer education and educate people about the rights of consumers and take action against exploitation of consumers. Central Consumer Protection Council or Central Council consists of a chairman who will be the minister in charge of consumer affairs in central government and other official and non-official members as may be prescribed. State Consumer Protection Council or State Council has a chairman who will be the minister in charge of consumer affairs in state government and other official and non-official members. Other official and non-official members not exceeding 10 as nominated by the central government. State Council has to conduct at least 2 meetings every year, and the procedure to be observed in such meetings will be prescribed by the state government. And the third one, District Consumer Protection Councils. District Council will have a chairman who will be the collector of the district or DC and other official or non-official members as may be prescribed. District councils have to conduct at least 2 meetings every year, and the procedure in such meetings will be prescribed by the state government. Now we shall move on. So, consumer disputes redressal agencies. These agencies have been established under the Consumer Protection Act. They work at 3 levels: district level, state level, and national level. So these agencies have powers similar to a civil court regarding production of evidence, documentation, conducting trials, passing orders, etc. District Consumer Disputes Redressal Agency is also called as District Forum. State Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission is also called State Commission. National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission is also called as National Commission. I have constructed a table here. So the first column in this table is point of difference, and the other three columns belong to these redressal agencies: district, state, and national. So point of difference 1, composition. So each agency is made up of some members, president and members. In case of district firm, the president shall be a district judge. A person who is a district judge or has been a district judge can be the president of a district forum, and two other members. One of them will be a woman. These two members must have some qualifications. They must not be less than 35 years of age. They must have a bachelor's degree from a recognized university. They must be persons of integrity, ability, and standing, and have adequate knowledge and experience for at least 10 years in dealing with problems relating to economics, law, commerce, accountancy, industry, public affairs, or administration. In case of state commission, the president should be a high court judge. A person who is a high court judge or has been a high court judge can become the president of a state commission, and two other members. One of them will be a woman. The qualifications are the same as for district forum: not less than 35 years of age and have a bachelor's degree from a recognized university, and must be persons of standing, ability, and integrity, and have adequate knowledge and experience for at least 10 years in dealing with problems relating to economics, law, commerce, accountancy, industry, public affairs, or administration. Then National Commission. Coming to the National Commission, the president shall be Supreme Court judge. A person who is a Supreme Court judge or has been a Supreme Court judge can be the president of a National Commission, and two other members. One of them will be a woman. The qualifications are the same as for district forum and state commission. Same qualifications: 35 years of age, bachelor's degree from a recognized university, and ability, integrity, standing, adequate knowledge and experience for at least 10 years in dealing with problems relating to those fields: economics, law, accountancy, etc. Next point of difference: jurisdiction. District forum deals with such cases in which the value of goods and services and compensation limit is less than or equal to 20 lakhs. Less than or equal to 20 lakhs. So district forums deal with cases up to 20 lakhs only. So value of goods and services and compensation up to 20 lakhs. Then state commission. Here the limit is more than 20 lakhs up to 1 crore. More than 20 lakhs up to 1 crore. So the value of goods and services and compensation limit is more than 20 lakhs and up to 1 crore. And also orders of district forum within state. If the state commission thinks that the district forum has utilize the jurisdiction illegally or there is a material irregularity, such cases will be entertained by the State Commission. Then the National Commission, here there is no limit, but all the cases above 1 crore value of goods and services and compensation limit exceeds 1 crore. Such cases will be dealt by the National Commission, and also orders of state commissions. So similar to district forum cases dealt by State Commission, here State Commission cases or orders will be entertained by the National Commission. So if the National Commission thinks that the State Commission has utilized the jurisdiction illegally or there is a material irregularity, such orders or such cases will be dealt by the National Commission. And the third point, this is common to all, complaint may be filed by consumer or recognized consumer association or one or more consumers in case of numerous consumers suffered, or state government or central government. So these people can file a complaint, any of these people. Okay. So next, so I have dealt with who can make a complaint in one of the previous slides, but how to make a complaint, the manner of making a complaint. A consumer who has a dispute with his seller or service provider can file a written complaint in the respective district forum, paying such amount as fee as prescribed, and the district forum has to decide the admissibility of the complaint within 21 days of receiving the complaint. So it is ordinarily decided within 21 days, and this complaint cannot be transferred to any other court or tribunal or any other authority, and the opportunity of being heard must be given to each and every complainant. In case the consumer is not able to make a complaint because of illiteracy or ignorance or poverty, any recognized consumer association can make a complaint. And procedure on receipt of complaint. There are two steps. Firstly, complaints where laboratory testing is possible or required. The forum refers a copy of complaint to the opposite party. If the opposite party denies allegations made in the complaint or fails to take action, then the forum takes the following actions. It refers the sample to appropriate laboratory. The complainant deposits fees to be paid to appropriate laboratory. The forum forwards test report to the opposite party. The opposite party makes objections to the test report, the forum gives an opportunity of hearing to both the parties. So these are the steps involved in the procedure A, complaints where laboratory testing is possible or required. And the second step, complaints relating to services where laboratory testing is not possible or required. So these can be seen as case 1, case 2. In case if there is deficiency in services, they are intangible offerings. So laboratory test is not possible. So the forum refers the complaint to the opposite party. If the opposite party denies allegations made in the complaint or fails to take action, then the forum will settle the dispute on the basis of the evidence available or decide the matter ex parte on the basis of evidence brought by the complainant, or if the complainant himself doesn't appear on the date of hearing, then the forum can dismiss the complaint for default or decide the case on its merits. So nature and scope of remedies under the Act. So what are the actions ordered by dispute redressal agencies? We shall have a look at them. The first one, the forums may ask the seller to remove the defects pointed out by the appropriate laboratory from all the goods in question, so that those goods don't harm anybody. Or they may ask to replace the goods with new goods of similar description, which shall be free from any defect. Or to return to the complainant the price or the charges paid by him. To pay such amount may be awarded by it as compensation to the consumer for any loss or injury suffered by the consumer due to the negligence of the opposite party. So this is a compensation for loss or injury suffered by the complainant. Or it may ask to remove the defects in goods or deficiencies in the services in question, or to discontinue the unfair trade practice or the restrictive trade practice, or not to repeat them, not to offer the hazardous goods for sale, and to withdraw the hazardous goods from being offered for sale, and such other steps. Here, the forum may order sellers to take even 2 or more of these steps. Okay? Or it may order to take one of these. So any combination is possible. So these are the remedies available under the Act. And thank you, students. I hope you have enjoyed the class. I hope you have got some insights into the consumer rights and interests. For any clarification or if you have any doubts, feel free to text me at my WhatsApp number or leave a comment in the comment section. Thank you. Thank you once again.